Hey folks, welcome to episode 15 of A Pebble in a Pond podcast. I have a lot to get into this episode and it's going to be a heavy one, so I'm going to go ahead and just start with the music and I'll see you on the other side. Enjoy. Oh boy. Well, I'm not going to lie to everybody. This is going to be a rough one. I know it's going to be a rough one because this is the fourth go around of me trying to record multiple different parts of this episode. Hopefully now that I've gotten all of the emotion and crying out, I'll be able to finish it. The episode that you're listening to right now is going to focus on regret. Now, I want to make this clear before I get too far into the episode. This will be the 15th episode, so I've had a lot of episodes now, and almost every single episode has focused on something positive. And that's obviously by design. That's what I want to talk about. However, it came up in conversation some time ago, and it really made me think. There's a bunch of creators on TikTok and on Instagram that have kind of started to get a bad rap because they only focus on the good things, and that's just not reality, right? Like, we all understand that there's hardship, there's struggle, there is pain in reality. And being able to deal with that is almost as important as being able to shore yourself up with all of the good things and understanding, how important honesty and kindness and empathy and love and all of these things are. So I was very hesitant to start to delve into the negative, emotions or aspects of existence, but I just feel like if I don't get to them, if I don't start to knock them out, they're just going to build up, just like emotions do in real life. I'm just going to keep trying to do some positive stuff, and in the meanwhile, I'll be looking over my shoulder thinking, I got to get to those sooner or later. So when I started to really think about it, and I started to come up with some topics that I wanted to get to, anger will be one of them. I I didn't really know what to start with, and it took me a while to really, it was tough. I'm not gonna lie to you, it was really, really tough. It took me a while, and I sat there thinking about it for basically almost like a week and a half, just ruminating over what I thought I could do and how I wanted to approach it. And what it came down to is, right now in my life, at this point in my life, which is a Tracy Chapman song, by the way, I am just going through so much, and I am dealing with a lot of regret. So when I was deciding on which topic to start with, I just figured I'd start with the one that is probably the most present in my life right now, which turns out after trying to record multiple times that was probably a mistake. That was probably not the smartest thing to do, considering that I haven't been able to make it through. But what I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to try to get through some of my personal stuff with you guys. I'm going to start to tell a little bit of a story, and but mostly I just want to talk about how we, what regret is and how we handle it. There will be a little personal stuff thrown in here and there, but every time I started to get into that on the previous recordings, of this episode, I was just breaking down, and I don't want you guys to have to sit and listen to me cry for an hour. So we're not gonna do what I originally planned, which was to kind of unburden myself a little bit in front of everybody that listens. I will still touch on some of that stuff, and I don't know if you can tell, but there will be some kind of weird edits here and there as I try to keep some of the stuff that I've worked on and some of the stuff this has been a multi-day project on this episode because of the weight of the topic. And I hope that everybody understands that. I hope that everybody can kind of sympathize with the fact that we all have regrets. We all have things that we either did or didn't do, and they affect us every day of our lives. And not knowing, how different things would have been, not knowing, always having these kind of fantasies of oh, well, it would have been like this, or this would have been different, or all of these things that just kind of come with regret. They weigh heavily on all of us, and this is something that no matter how well intentioned you are, and no matter how much you lean on all of the positive and the great concepts that I've put forward here on the podcast and that just in life, you're going to have regret in your life, despite the fact that you try not to. And it will happen, and what you do with it will determine the rest of your life. So, tough one. This is a tough one. Let me go ahead and get a quote out of the way, because that's what we like to do around here. Let me see. This is a quote from someone who is, I guess you could say she was controversial. I really consider her controversial. The people around her maybe, but this is a quote from Barbara Bush. And I found it, and I thought that it would be a good way to start the episode. And what she said was, at the end of your life, you will never regret not having passed one more test, not winning one more verdict, or not closing one more deal. You will regret time not spent with a husband, a friend, a child, or a parent. So I thought that was a beautiful sentiment, and it's a good place to start because it's kind of a positive way of understanding that we don't want to live with that regret, and that there are certain kinds of regret, right? Like she's talking about the fact that some people genuinely believe that if they don't accomplish in life based on a societal standard, that they're going to regret that. Other people understand that the only true regret, the regret that haunts you, the regret that you take to your grave with you, is understanding that you've missed out on opportunities and time with those that you love. That is true regret. Now, what does regret mean? We should maybe start with that as we start to get into this. What is regret exactly? The dictionary says regret is a feeling of sadness, repentance, or disappointment over something that has happened or been done. Another that's the noun definition. The verb definition is feel sad, repentant, or disappointed over something that has happened or been done, especially a lost or missed opportunity. And those are both fine definitions in terms of just being kind of a blanket idea of what it is. I think we all kind of knew that already. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be listening to the episode. But let's go a little bit deeper. What does it mean? So there's a lot of a lot more than you would think reading to be done on the topic of regret. And really, honestly, when I started to dive into it a week and a half ago, 2 weeks now, I was actually pretty shocked about exactly how much studying I could do on the topic. I guess I shouldn't have been. I really shouldn't have been. But what it really hammered in was just how universal the concept was, and how, like I said already, none of us escape regret. You will live with regret at some point in your life. So I started to look at some of the more accepted psychological definitions and things like that. They go in a little bit more in depth, and I found one that I thought was, it made sense. I guess I could say, regret is a self-focused negative emotion about something that has happened or been done by us. We feel bad because we did or didn't do something we believe we should or shouldn't have done. And then here's the part that really that made this one stand out. Given regret involves acknowledging our role in our present circumstances, it also often includes self-blame. When we say that we regret something, and this is actually almost pulled directly from the same source that I got this psychological definition from. When we regret something, it means that we disagree with our past decision making. Whether you did something or you didn't, regret can be action or inaction. So remember that as we discuss it. Oftentimes people will say, well, I didn't do anything, I can't regret it. Well, not doing something often leads to regret as well. And there's literally a billion different versions of regret. And this can go, you can get really deep with this if you really want to, but there is a theory that every single moment of every single day that you're alive, everything that you do is essentially creating a alternate reality. So there's an infinite number of realities out there. Now, this is going to get a little deep, like I said. So at any given point, right now, as I record this, I have my hands crossed. Now, what would happen if my microphone started to fall and I had to catch it, but my hands were crossed and I couldn't catch it and the microphone fell and broke? Well, then I would have to live with the regret of having my hands crossed, not being in a position to catch the microphone. The episode would end and I wouldn't be able to publish an episode until I got a new mic. Now, obviously that didn't happen because you're hearing the episode. At least I hope it doesn't happen. That would be weird. But all of these different alternate things that we do or we don't do. Think about how many times you've been sitting at your desk with your coffee or your drink or something, and you go to move and you knock over your cup. Well, you wouldn't have done that if you hadn't put your cup there. Now, not a big deal. You wipe it up. But what if it gets on your keyboard? What if it gets on something that is, well, then you start to feel this little pang of regret. Why did I put my cup of coffee there? Why did I put my drink there? Why did I do that? And you start to think, oh, now I got to get a new keyboard. And all of these things that you start to have to deal with are all coming back to your decision to put your cup there. Now, this goes to that, infinite realities thing. The idea of infinite realities was one that I always found kind of haunting, because basically what that is that's infinite levels of regret. Because in each one of those realities, whichever form it takes, whichever direction you ended up going in this reality, you end up wondering about all the other things that could have happened. Now that's not necessarily true with every single instance, but you know what I mean? Like if you really stop to think about it, it'll haunt you. It'll be really creepy, because you'll start to, okay, well, what would have happened if I would have done this? What would have happened if I would have done this? And you can literally go through, and the reality is that there's so many variations on your own decision that it's almost crippling. And that really is the power of regret. Regret is one of those emotions that will haunt you before you ever do anything. It will affect your actions before you even consider an action. We live so much of our lives fearful of regret. Now that takes, there's a lot of words for that. I mean, right now there's even a popular term is FOMO, fear of missing out. Well, what do you think that is? That's literally the fear of regret. Because if you miss out, you're going to regret it. That's what that is. Regret is a fear that can take place well before you even know you have an opportunity, and haunts you well past when that opportunity comes. And so when we talk about in the podcast and on the TikTok channel and things like that, when I talk about living in the present, that is one of the best ways to live without regret. Now, obviously the things that you've done in the past will affect your present to a certain degree, but understanding that at each given moment, you're essentially setting up the catalyst. Let's think of it as dominoes. You're setting up the dominoes for the rest of whatever path you're on. You're setting that up with every decision you make, every step you take, every time you decide to hold your breath or look this way as opposed to that way. And if you live your life thinking about each one of those little tiny decisions and start stressing out over them, then you're obviously not doing a good job. That's not something that I'm trying to encourage. But it is something that if you sit and you think, if you really meditate on it, if you spend some time thinking about all of the decisions that you've made that have led you into different paths, it will leave you wondering. It will leave you wondering. Now, it may not leave you regretting. And that's something that I really wanted to get into, was the difference between thinking about what could have been and regretting what could have been. And for this part of it, trying to understand, the difference between, just thinking or wondering and actual regret, we're going to use a romantic relationship as an example, because that seems to be something that many people have regret around. It's stunning when you think about it, when you really, spend a lot of time, when you think about how humans get together, how we form bonds and things like that. Oftentimes we go through the process of, whatever you want to call it, courting or, getting to know each other, without really truly understanding why we do the things we do and how we do the things we do. And then we just arrive at the point where people decide that they're going to be together. That's great. But when you start to break down all of your decisions along the way, when you're able to get some real clarity and understand it with hindsight, you start to say, okay, well, we arrived here because of this. We arrived here because of that. We got to where we are because of this. Now, that works out great if your relationship is good, and you very rarely will ever think about that. If things go great for the rest of your life, if you meet the one and you do all the things to get to know them, and you get together, and you'll remember the little things, your first kiss, first time you held hands, we went to eat here. You'll remember all that stuff. But what you don't remember is the minutia of how you ended up together. Oftentimes, some people do, but I promise you this, and this is a really interesting thing when you think about it. If something goes wrong, and if that relationship ends poorly or ends really at all, and there's pain and there's hurt, what you find is that you start to go back and you start to say, oh, well, what if I had done this instead? What if I had done this instead? And then you start to wonder and you start to regret. Now, once again, what's the difference there? Wondering is, say you're walking, with your newfound sweetheart, and you, I really hate that word sweetheart. I don't know why I said that. It just made me laugh. So you're walking with your sweetie, and you're holding hands, and you're talking, and you're having a great time. Now, like I said, if the relationship, however the relationship goes, that's going to be a fine memory. You're going to remember that. Say you're walking outside of, down the walkway in a strip mall or something. You're just going from shop to shop together, just doing a little Saturday shopping or something. And that memory may blend in with a million other memories as long as things are going great. But if things break down, if, you start to wonder, or things start to go bad, and then you start to wonder and you start to regret, right? So if you're holding hands, you're walking down the strip mall together, you're talking to each other, and in this example, I'm going to, just say she because I'm a man. So say she says to you, I don't know, she says something and you don't respond favorably. Now, once again, we're going on the assumption that this relationship is doing well in one reality, right? Like you've gone from this point into the future, been highly successful in this one reality. Now, in all the other realities, when she says whatever she says and you don't respond favorably, you don't respond kindly, you don't respond with love, or you don't respond with attention, maybe you're zoned off, maybe you're whatever it may be, the reason why you don't respond correctly, she turns and she looks at you and her feelings are hurt. That's just this one version of reality. So now when you're looking back on this, the relationship is over, you guys have had fights and fights and fights, and you're looking back on these moments. Now you have to go through this period of wonder or regret. Now, do you regret not doing this, or do you wonder what happened? Well, it's really easy to figure that out. If you're wondering, you're literally just going through, okay, I wonder what would have happened if I did this. And then you kind of play out the scene in your head. You play it out, and you say, okay, I don't think that would have changed anything. Now, regret is when you say, I wonder what would have happened if I had turned and listened, if I had done this, if I had done these things, this would have had a different outcome. This moment would have changed everything. I could have changed this. I could have made it better. And then you start to kind of ruminate on all of the things you could have done. Now, do you understand the difference between wondering and regret? Wondering is fine. You look back and you say, okay, well, this led to this and this led to that, and it was, this is all inevitable. This was going to happen one way or the other. And I appreciate this. And you can kind of look at it and you can say, okay, well, I did this. And if you're fair to yourself, you'll say, well, this was my state of mind at the time. And I don't feel like I really made a mistake. And I understand where she was coming from. And you can really kind of see the different perspectives in the moment, and you understand exactly how that happened. And it gives you a sense of peace and a sense of understanding of that moment. But if you regret, then you're going to go back and you're going to start to think, oh, I could have done this differently, or oh, I shouldn't have said that, or oh, why didn't I grab her by the hand, and or why didn't I pull her in and give her a hug or a kiss, or why didn't I react better? Why didn't I hold her and tell her it was okay? Why didn't I? And you'll start to have all these feelings of not only will you be hyper self-aware, but you'll start to feel doubt and pain, and you'll start to say, why didn't I do this? Why did I mess this up? That's regret. That's what regret is. Now, what is the opposite of regret? This is important for this wander versus regret. The opposite of regret is satisfaction. The opposite of regret is remorselessness. The opposite of regret is being able to look back on something and say, no, I'm okay with this because I think I made the right choice. I think this is good. I think that, even if the end outcome of this imaginary relationship is one that is not good, if something ends, you can go back through points and you can say, no, I think I did that right. Now, I'm based on the information that I have and based on the memories that I'm able to, get to. I think that everything I did there was good. Now, sometimes we fool ourselves and sometimes we don't understand the perspective of the other person, whatever it may be. But you can look back and you say, no, I'm satisfied. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with. And what I've found as I've gotten older, I'm 48, is that a lot of times when I look back on those situations throughout my life and I start to really dig through things that I'm wondering about or I'm regretting, I've found that a lot of times, from my perspective, I don't have a reason for regret as much as I thought I did maybe in a more recent history of those moments. And that's one of the things that we will get to is how to kind of live with regret or how to get over regret. And I'll talk to that in a little bit. But one of the things about regret that is really the most interesting, and I know that I'm kind of jumping around here with all these different things, but like I said, I didn't really understand how much I was going to have to read and how much I was going to have to get out in this episode when I forwarded the idea of this episode. I really genuinely did not expect to kind of have to jump around like this, but there's just so much information about this that I'm trying to touch on everything I can without, within an hour or so. So I do apologize. I'm regretting picking regret as a topic. Not just because of the tears, but because of the amount of information that I want to convey. And it does make it so I kind of have to jump quickly from idea to idea. So just try to stay with me, because I know that I'm moving on from things quickly, but it's because I've got my little notes here on my screen, and I'm literally just trying to hit all of them as much as I can, because there's a list and I've got about 15 more things that I want to get to. So that's just a little insight really quick into the how the sausage is made, if you will, because what I'll do is I'll go through, and as I'm studying and researching, I have a little, I'll just pull up a notepad or whatever on my computer, and I just make notes of, this is what I want to talk about, and this is what I want to talk about. And I had to start doing that because I was finding that I would kind of wander a lot more. But now what I'm finding is that when I have the notes and I'm looking at it, I'll be in mid-sentence and try to get to the next thing. So I need to find a way to make my mind work. I don't know how I can do that, but I'm figuring it out. We'll get there together. Sorry if that's a little bit too much information about how my process works for this whole thing, but I am relatively new at this. There's 15 episodes, but I've only been doing it for a few months, so we'll figure it out. I'll find a more comfortable way to get these ideas onto the recording. So just using going back to that, and just using the romantic relationship. One of the things was really interesting was reading about. Now I want this to be clear. I couldn't really find a lot of information that worked on a worldwide level. Most of the information that I found was American research, but that's probably because I don't really know how to search all of it on the worldwide level. But one of the interesting things that I saw was there was I don't remember where it was that I saw it, but there was a list of the things that Americans in particular tend to regret the most. And I thought it was interesting because, like, as far as causes of regret in our society, the things that people regret the most are romance, which is right up there. Like, that's probably the top one. They weren't actually ranked, but that was the first one listed. I imagine that was for a reason. Education. People regret either not being educated, or some people even regret wasting time on education. Career choices, obviously. I mean, that's a no-brainer. And people have often regretted their leisure activities, which I thought was interesting because, you think of leisure as like the thing you do for fun, the thing you do to relax. But turns out that one of the biggest regrets people have is wasting time. People will get so caught up in their their pursuit of relaxing and having fun and things like that they then will regret that, because they won't move their life forward in a way that is acceptable to them any longer. Because as we grow and as we change, we start to value different things. And so a lot of times people will think back and be like, oh, I wasted so much time partying, or I wasted so much time doing this, or if I just would have hunkered down and studied, or that is a very, very common regret. And what's funny is that does kind of go hand in hand with one of these other ones, which I thought this was actually the shocking one to me, was that self-improvement was something that people that was on the list. And when I first read that, I was like, why would people regret improving themselves? Well, that's not what that means. They regret not improving themselves. And I when I first read it, I was, like I said, I was thinking about it in a stupid way. So I was kind of shocked to see that on the list. And I was like, why is that there? That doesn't make any sense at all. And then I was like, oh, yeah, people regret not improving themselves. And it took me a minute because, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with me. But it took me a minute to think about that. And I was like, I have a podcast. I have a podcast and a TikTok channel that literally 85% of the content that I create is about improving yourself, is about being a better version of yourself. And that's when it kind of hit home. And I was like, oh, why do I do that? Am I doing this stuff because of regret? Am I doing this stuff because I spent 15 to 16 years in a depression and now I'm looking back on my life regretting obviously I couldn't necessarily stop being depressed, but regretting all of that time, regretting the decisions that I made, regretting the fact that I was essentially a net negative in the lives of so many everybody in my life. I was a burden. And am I doing all of this? Is this a gross overcorrection for what I've done in the past? And I had to really sit there and think about it. And what I came to was, yeah. I mean, if I'm just being honest, yeah, it really is. This podcast and the TikTok channel and all of the things that that I'm doing in my life, in my real life, where I'm trying to get out and I'm trying to help people and I'm trying to. Now I've always done those things, but now I've never had this drive like I do now, and I realize that part of it is because I feel like I've got to make amends. I've got to make it right. And that comes from regret. That comes from the fact that I do deeply regret the things that I said and the things that I did while I was depressed. Now I have a lot more regrets than that because, I'm a horribly damaged person, but that right now is the regret that is haunting me, the regret that I live with every single day. But before we get too much into my personal stuff anymore, the last thing that people regret, and this is also going to get into my personal stuff, which is why I wanted to talk about it before I got too far ahead. The other thing that most Americans regret, or not most, but a lot of Americans regret, and this one just hit right close to home, is parenting. And I know that many of you that listen to this will understand the multitude of ways that this answer can come about. If you are a parent, then you know that basically your whole life from the start is you trying to balance some sort of regret for how you've parented your child. And what's funny about that is that, none of us really know what we're doing. Like, we can read all the books, we can listen to all the professionals, we can do all of the things we're supposed to do, and we're still going to have an ample amount of regret over how we've raised our child. And that's just because we are all so imperfect, and we all have our own biases, and we all have our own, crazy little things that we do, and our children will pick up on that stuff, and it will affect them. And here's what I want to say about this, and this is where it gets kind of personal for me. Many of you know that I don't really have a relationship with my father anymore, and this is one of those situations I've explained on TikTok, and I think I've told the story here on one of these episodes, a little bit at least. But this is where regret can really be, I guess, quantified to a certain degree. My father and I don't speak anymore because at a certain point I started to understand the way that he had lived his life and the way that he had hurt so many people, and he refused to ever apologize for it. My father was the opposite of regretful. He was remorseless. He went through his life. He's still alive, but he has gone through his life in a selfish way hurting people. And at some point in time, I just started to see it. Probably when I started to feel it more, I started to understand that he was just being selfish towards me. And that's when I made the decision, a conscious decision, to tell him that I wanted him to apologize for the pain that he had caused, not just me, but my mom and his girlfriend and all of these other people that he had kind of hurt in his life. And I wanted him to apologize. If he couldn't apologize to them personally, then I wanted him to apologize to me. And it was at that point that we ceased communication. He just couldn't do it. Now, this is where we go back a little bit and we talk about the difference between wondering and regret. I have spent, it's been a decade now since I've spoken to my father, and I have spent literally days at a time just completely in the tank, just ruminating on what I could have done different, how this could have been different. And what I've come to realize is that is what wondering is. That's why I make that differentiation between those things. Is I've sat there for literally hours upon hours at a time thinking, how could I have saved our relationship? And the reality is that I could not have done this any differently based upon who I am as a person. There's a lot of people in this world that would tell me, oh, just don't worry about it, and you're gonna miss time with your father, and what are you're gonna regret that. And here's what I have to say, and this is gonna sound cold, this is gonna sound mean, but I genuinely mean this. I do love my father. I love my father with my whole heart, but I will never, ever stand by and let someone, man, woman, doesn't matter, hurt somebody else the way that he has hurt people and not take some accountability for it. And if that accountability comes in the form of him not having his son in his life anymore, then that's what it has to be. Because it is not right. And I have to stand by what I believe in this world. And I believe that being good and being a good person and being kind, and if you make mistakes, if you fuck up, then you apologize. You have to be able to see that, and you have to be able to take accountability for your actions. And my father has refused to do that. And so when I sit there and I think about it and I wonder about it, while I certainly don't want to, I don't want him to go to the grave or, this all to end with me never speaking to him again. But if that's what it takes, I'm okay with it. I'm okay never speaking to him again if it means that he's never going to have accountability. If he's never going to say, I'm sorry, then that's what it means. At some point in time, I have to stand by what I believe in. And that's why when I sit and I wonder about it, and I sit and I really, like I said, I kind of go into the tank and I really think about it, I don't regret what I said to him. I don't. And every day since then that I've sat and I've thought about it, I've had conversations with my kids, I've had conversations with my girlfriend, I've had conversations with all sorts of people about it. And at the end of the day, once I've kind of explained the situation, most people are like, I get it. I understand. Like, it sucks. And it does. It certainly sucks. It certainly sucks to not have that relationship with my father anymore. But I'll tell you this. I would absolutely regret going back to my father and saying, you know what? Don't worry about saying I'm sorry. Let's just be pals again. I would regret that. That is what I would regret. I would regret bending my own morals, bending my own understanding of what it means to be good and kind and accountable for the things that you do. I couldn't do that because if I did that, I would always wonder. I would always regret. I would sit there and I would think about it, and it would always lead to regret. And even if that means I have my father in my life again, that's just not something that, it's just not worth it. The amount of regret that I would live with is just not worth it. And this sounds bad to say it this way, but after so long, I don't know if he's worth it, because it's a decision. It's a choice that he makes every single day. Now, obviously he doesn't think about it. It's not something that's on the tip of his mind or anything, but every single day for 10 plus years now, He's had to wake up knowing that I'm not speaking to him. He's had to make the choice to not reach out. Now, I'm a father. I'm a father that loves my children with all of my heart. And especially me and my boys have had, we've damn near come to blows. We haven't, but, we have had some really intense fights. And I pride myself on the fact that I will always, even if it means I have to bend the knee, I will always find a way for us to work it out. I would never be able to do what my father has done. I would never be able to go every single day. It would have killed me to not have my sons speaking to me. I would have done anything. I would have done all of the soul searching. I would have done all of the, whatever it took. I would have found a way. Oh, but this man has literally for 10 plus years, every single day, has woken up, gone about his day, done his things, and hasn't reached out. So at some point in time, how can I regret? How can I possibly regret any of the messages that I sent him, any of the correspondence that we had before we stopped talking? How can I regret any of it? He's obviously doesn't care because he hasn't made any effort. And here's one of the things, and this is going to sound, this is a therapy session type thing to say, but he's my father. I'm the son. Now I'm 48 years old now, but he's still supposed to be my father. He's supposed to be the guy that does this. Now I understand that I have moved well beyond him in terms of maturity and understanding, but it still is frustrating as the son, as the part of me. And that's, I'm sure that you all understand that. Like, you still want to look up to your parents. You still want to be able to say, oh, look, there's still an example of how to be and how to think and how to behave. And I can't do that with my father. And it sucks. It sucks. So this is one of those weird edits that I was talking about. But just so that everybody's aware, I recorded that a little while ago, or not a little, like a day ago. And so I started to get really emotional with that, and I'm going to just stop that part of it here because I don't think I can record that again. So I know this is kind of herky-jerky and it feels kind of weird, but I just want to be as transparent as possible. It started to get a little heavy, a little more heavy than I was able to handle, talking about my dad. And the reality is, and this will be the last part of this segment, is that, like I said, the regret there is non-existent as far as that goes. What it turns into very quickly is anger, because, and that's what happened when I was recording it. Is I really started to get angry, because there's just so much disrespect and there's just so much, hurt feelings. By not talking to me, my father has essentially outcast my children as well from his circle. He'll still send them Christmas cards and things like that, but he has nothing. They don't have a grandfather as far as they're concerned. So it's really, really frustrating, and it just brings about so much anger in me. And once again, I don't regret my decision, and I have thought about it so much. And it has been, something that I've thought about. Unlike him, apparently, I've thought about it a lot. Not every day, but many times a month, if not a week. I think about the situation with my father, and well, there you go. That's really what regret is, and that's when I saw the list of the things that people regret. Parenting was the one that stood out the most to me. Now, on that list of education, career, romance, parenting, self-improvement, and leisure, I regret almost all of that. I have a regret in every category, and we don't have time for me to get into all of those. So let's just say that every single one of those is a regret in my life. I certainly regret choices I made in my education. I do not have a career to speak of. you're listening to the only thing that I do as a career. And this, I've only got 15 episodes, so even that's not too accomplished. And I make TikToks. Romance, man, I could tell you some stories. But for now, let's just say that of all of those on that list, romance is the one that probably has the heaviest, hardest hitting, and most painful regrets of all of them. And that includes my father. The lack of self-improvement. Well, yes, that is certainly something that I regret, but not as much as the others. And I think that honestly, I think there's more pride. I think that I'm a lot more satisfied in that regard. But when I really think about it, I have a few regrets there. It's not as prolific as all of the other ones would be. It is one of those things where with self-improvement where I just think of, oh, I could have been so much further ahead. I could have understood this better. But in general, it's not something that I tend to think of as one of my weak points. Leisure, man, I had a conversation with a friend of mine just last week, and I was realizing so much of my life is filled with both wonder and regret. Because I sit there and I'm like, how did I survive that? How did I live through that? Why did I do these things when I was younger? How did I? And then also, the regret that I have of just certain decisions that I've made in terms of, how I've moved through this world, in terms of my, the things that I do for fun and things like that. I'm not I've told everybody this, you all know it by now. I'm not a drinker. I don't do drugs. I'm not real big on like partying and things like that. But one of the reasons I don't do a lot of those things is because I've always been the guy that didn't really need to do those things to be relatively insane by most people's standards. So I have a lot of regrets when it comes to the things that I've done or the ways that I've behaved, because I have people come up to me all the time when I go somewhere where I know people or people from my past, and they'll come up to me and they'll tell me these stories of things that I did, and I don't remember a damn bit of it, but they'll tell me, oh, and you did this, and then you jumped off of this thing, and I don't know how you survived that. And what I realize now is that one of my biggest regrets is the way that people throughout my life see me now, because a lot of them see that version of me. And well, I don't know if you know much about 48-year-old knees, but I'm not going to be jumping from any roofs anytime soon. So we're going to switch gears here, and this episode is actually going to end up running a little long because of how much I'm going into all this. And I apologize for that, but we're going to switch gears here, and we're going to talk about something that regret does to our lives. And this is probably the most important segment of this episode, and I really want to make sure that everybody understands how serious this is for me. There was a very famous yoga guru and a Hindu spiritual leader. His name was Swami, I can't remember, Swami Sivananda, I think is how you say it. And he once said, do not brood over your past mistakes and failures, as this will only fill your mind with grief, regret, and depression. Do not repeat them in the future. The reason I use that quote and the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because regret, like I alluded to before, is one of those emotions or one of those feelings that you have that will affect you before you even realize it's affecting you. Before you've even gotten to the point where you're making a decision, you're fearful of regret. But what regret does to you after is perhaps, it really is one of the most powerful things on this planet. I would say it's right up there with gravity. The way that we feel regret, the way that we process the grief and the depression that comes with regret, the way that we deal with it, the amount of pain that we carry in ourselves will oftentimes cripple us for life. And what I mean by that is you become so fearful, you become so avoidant, You become so detached. You become cold or aloof, or you start to pull yourself away from situations because you're so afraid of being hurt again, or you're so afraid of having to go through that again, whatever it may have been, that you end up cutting entire segments of your life off. You cut people off. You intentionally drive people out of your life, over and over, causing more regret. Regret is, and I used the analogy a bit ago, setting up dominoes. That's how regret works for a lot of people. Once you start to regret the first thing, you start to live your life in a way where you don't ever have to regret again. You don't want to feel that again. You don't want to. And so you start to do things that you will regret, to cover up for the one regret. And I'm going to use an example here. And this is actually one that I read about. There was a lady who cheated on her husband, and she writes about how, this was a "Am I the Asshole" post on Reddit, and she writes about, and this is a giant post, but she basically writes about how she had an affair, and she covered it up, and her husband didn't know about it, and she went through a good couple of years where their relationship was okay, but she had just fallen prey to her desires over this person, and she thought, as long as he doesn't know, then we're good. And he didn't know, and things went on, and that feeling that she started with was one of, she was excited. She had kind of gotten away with it. She'd had a couple of flings with this guy, and it was fine. Nothing happened. She didn't live with any regret. She was actually enjoyed thinking about it. It was, something. It was a point of almost pride to her. And then something else happened. Her and her husband got in a fight, and she went and she had another affair. And this was with it. She didn't really detail who these people were, but she went and had another affair. And it was another one where it was just a couple of times. It was a fling, and she went on, and again she felt fine about it. She didn't really have any of the moral problems with it. She felt like, well, if he had done this, and kind of the way that people think about those situations when they're cheating, oh well, if he had done this, then I wouldn't have been forced to do this. And so this actually ended up happening a couple of times over the course of their relationship. And after each one of these situations, and I think she said the number, but I don't remember how many times this had happened over the course of the relationship, but each time she would basically tell herself, I don't regret that. I don't regret that. It was good, and I'm glad I did it, and whatever. We'll work it out. The husband and wife will work it out. But she was happy on the side over here, and she was doing something that made her happy, and so she didn't regret it. She didn't regret it. She didn't regret it over and over again. And then they got a divorce, and even then she would say, "No, I don't regret it. I don't regret it one bit." And lo and behold, after the divorce, he's gone. He's found another love. He's moved on. This is, 2-3 years later. And all of a sudden, like a ton of bricks, and this is when she wrote this post, all of it hit her at once. It all hit her at once. Now, she had lived her life in such a way where she had, she'd made the first mistake, which was going through and entertaining and being with another man when she was married. And then she kind of hid it, right? She just stifled it. She any of the negative feelings that came with it, she wanted to hold on to the goodness of that moment. She wanted it to be pure. She wanted it to be okay. And she couldn't imagine that what she did was wrong. She just couldn't allow herself to feel that what she did was wrong. So instead, she just built this like fake world around it. But that didn't really work. She didn't understand that at the time. She would tell people that knew about it. She would tell herself, "Oh, I don't regret it. Oh, I don't regret it." And when the time came to talk to her husband about it, she told her husband, "I don't regret it." but she did. And every single action that she took after that was a domino that was falling over from this first moment. All of those things were moments that she now regrets. Every single thing. And she writes about it in great detail. And she says, I met a guy that I went to school with, and I entertained his messages. I guess they were talking on Facebook or something, and I entertained his messages. We flirted online. We did, and she goes through and she's like, I regret every single moment of every single part of this, because I lost my husband because of it. So she and literally, if you think about what the things that go into cheating on your partner, there's a list of moments that you have to go through, like literally dozens of moments that you have to go through. At every single turn, you have a choice that you're making. And this woman is writing about it, saying, I didn't regret, for the longest time, she didn't regret any of it. Every single choice that she made, talking to these guys, talking to, getting them, going out to dinner with them, going out and, kind of going to their apartment or whatever, going to their house, every single one of those is a moment now. Every single point of that is another domino that she is now, 2 or 3 years later, however long it was, regretting with every fiber of her being. Because she understands just exactly how many choices that she made to not feel regret over the first thing that she did, right? This first guy that she ever had a relationship with, she had the opportunity right there at the very beginning of it, when he started flirting with her, to say, I'm married. And she didn't. She liked the way it felt when he flirted with her. And so she let him keep flirting, and so on and so forth. And then it moved further and further. And every single point from that first relationship, every single point was her feeling bad about the fact that she let that happen, but she didn't want to feel bad about it. So now she just has literally decades of regret built up because of this situation, because she just couldn't stomach the idea of facing it at any point. And now she's been forced to. She doesn't have a choice anymore. She doesn't have her husband. He's gone on to another relationship. She doesn't have anything, she's just kind of living her life. And she even writes that after the divorce, she went out and she had her party phase and all this stuff. I think she's 50 years old or something like that. And she had a party phase, and she went out and she had she got with a bunch of guys and all this stuff. And she was feeling good about it. And then, there's that quiet time where you have to start to wonder. And that's when the regret comes in. When you start to think about the mistakes that you've made, when you start to think about, and you start to weigh, am I just wondering about it, or is it a regret? And that's when she says the regret just hit her. It hit her so hard. She's been in multiple therapy sessions. She's just not, obviously, as you can imagine, she's just not doing well. And that's why she wrote this whole big thing. And what's funny is that she wrote it in the Am I the Asshole Reddit, and there's literally not I feel so bad actually when I was reading it, because there's not one person that was like, no, you're not the asshole. Like literally thousands of people responded to this woman. It was like, yeah, you are a giant asshole. So now I wonder if she feels regret for posting that. But it was one of those things that I thought was a good example of how regret is a domino that really does affect the rest of your life if you don't face it, if you don't deal with it. And so I know that this is running long, and I want to get to this before I let it go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut to another section here really fast, and we're going to talk about how we deal with regret. I know it's kind of a quick change, but I want to make sure I get this into this episode. So I'm gonna switch over here, and we're gonna talk about something else. So you regret something. You regret an action or an inaction. This is an interesting point of this, is that inaction is the thing that people regret the most. I think James Hetfield, the lead singer of Metallica, once said, I would rather regret action than not doing something, which is a valid thing to say. A lot of times we can regret what we did, and because we can apologize for it, we can make amends for an action a lot of times, as long as we truly understand it, and we know that we did harm, and we know that we hurt somebody or something, we can make amends for it. But if we didn't do anything, there's nothing that can be done at that point in time. All you have is that regret. Regret is a powerful, powerful thing. And the reason why I want to get to this topic is because I don't want this episode to end on a bad note. And so what I want to do is I want to talk about, first of all, how we live with regret. And then I want to talk about why regret is so important. So why do we regret? And how do we live with it? Well, we regret because, once again, we've done something or we haven't done something. So what do we do about it? Once one of those things has come to pass, what do we do? The first thing you can do is accept it. That is probably the first and most important step in this whole thing, is because in this example of this woman, she didn't accept it. And so she just continued to pile regret upon regret, action upon action that she was going to regret. And if she would have had somebody with her, maybe she had like a little guide or something, a little Jiminy Cricket there telling her, you're going to regret that, then maybe you could say, oh, well, she knew she was going to regret it. But she didn't really have that forethought. She didn't really have that understanding. She really genuinely believed she was going to be able to avoid it, but she couldn't. And so now she has action after action that she now regrets. But at no point in time did she have acceptance of what she had done. At no point in time did she say, oh man, yeah, I really screwed that up. I really messed that up. And I'm willing to take accountability for that. I'm willing to accept what has to happen now. It's accountability is the first step after acceptance. And that usually goes hand in hand with, understanding, okay, I did this, how do I fix it? And that is the easiest. Okay, I won't say easiest. That is not correct. It is the most effective and efficient way of dealing with regret, is trying to balance it. That is not easy. As I pointed out already at the beginning of this episode, it is not easy, and it is something that I am desperately doing, desperately trying to figure out, and desperately trying to, figure out in my own life, and how I'm gonna continue to make up for the things that I regret. It's not always the most positive way of being, and it can oftentimes create situations where you start to generate self-loathing, and it's counterproductive in a lot of ways to healing. But acceptance is the first thing. You have to be willing to look at and understand exactly what you regret and why you regret it. Where does the regret come from? Why do you have this negative emotion? Why do you hurt? You have to be willing to do the work to figure that out. That's the first thing you need to do. And accept the fact that you feel like that. Give yourself a little grace. Understand that, okay, this is a negative feeling. I don't enjoy this. Why am I feeling this way? And then be like, oh, okay, I figured this out. Okay, now what do I do? What do I do now? And if you're somebody who doesn't want to go back and you don't want to make amends for it, and you don't want to necessarily, or maybe it's not an option, maybe the person isn't talking to you that you regret an action with, or you're just not in the same position mentally, or whatever it may be. If you can't go back and essentially fix the issue, then what you want to do from that point on is start to understand, and this is where regret really is so powerful, and honestly a great teaching tool, is you want to live your life from that point on so that you don't regret that action again, or that inaction again. You have to learn from it. You have to say, I'm not going to do that again, or I'm going to I'm going to own this, and I'm going to make changes in the way that I think or the way that I behave so that this never happens again. That is a huge, huge step. And you see that all the time in among alcoholics. People that are recovering alcoholics, people that are fighting every day to remain alcohol-free, they live with that regret. And every single day, they make the brave and amazing decision to not drink. And every single day, people don't commend them on it. People don't say anything about it. Some of their friends even mock them for it. But every single day is a triumph. Every single day is a moment that they should be so proud of themselves. And I know a lot of them are, because every single day is a struggle. And they do that because they don't want to feel that regret. They have learned the lesson. Now, obviously people fall, people fail, people will miss, but in those times when you're really trying to get out of those kind of situations where you have substance abuse and things like that, you have to go through it and understand that you're creating a map for how you want to live your future. You're creating a path for you to walk down so that you're not entangled by the things that you've done in your past. The only way to do that is to accept that you were an alcoholic, that you are an alcoholic, and understand that you're fighting every single step of the way to not be that again, to not, be in that mindset, to not be that person. It's such a brave fight, and I wanted to make sure I brought that up because among the leisure topic, that is the number one thing that people regret, is allowing themselves to become substance dependent. And I thought that was important to bring up. One of the things that I do for myself when I'm trying to handle living with my regrets is, and this goes back to the alternate reality discussion. One of the reasons I brought that up in the first place was for this right here, is oftentimes we get into a situation where we have a moment. We have a moment to make a decision. We can really pause and say, okay, which one of these is best? And maybe the best way to approach your decision making is, if I do this, will I regret it? If I don't do this, will I regret it? And you do that with all of the choices that you see in front of you. Now, here's the thing about that. There's always going to be stuff you don't see. There's always going to be things that you don't know. You cannot regret things that you don't have access to, information that you don't know, people at play that you maybe don't know, or they're in play. You don't know that they're, a factor that you should be thinking about. If you don't know, you cannot live with regret. You can wonder, but you cannot live with regret over something that you can't control. I know this because I actually made a TikTok video when I actually started to decide on this episode. I made a TikTok video about a situation. If you want to go over there and watch it, you can. I'm not going to go into it here, but there's plenty of situations, and this one in particular that I talk about, where there was literally nothing I could have done. There was nothing I could have done in that situation, but I still regret it. Why? Well, that's just how I've worked, and it's taken me years and years and years to get to the point where I don't regret it. Like, I know there's nothing I could have done, but it was a regret that I held on to for a really long, really, really long time, because I just felt so ineffective. But there was nothing I could have done, and as much as it sucks to say there's nothing I could have done, that's the truth of it. So I can't have that regret. I can't burden myself with that anymore. So as you're going through trying to deal with the ramifications of regret you may feel, understand that while you may not be able to instantly fix what you did in the past, you certainly can live your life in a way where you don't regret things in the future. You cannot be that lady. You cannot be the one who hides from things that you've done and then continues to pour yourself into new regrets. You don't want to be like that lady who, some years from now, every regret that you have over a situation hits you all at once, and you're left just stunned and bewildered with the weight and the enormity of the amount of pain that you've caused. Don't be like that. face these things as they come. Understand I made a mistake. Make amends. Don't hide it. Don't stifle it. Don't be afraid of that pain, because I promise you, the regret, the long-term regret that you're going to feel is so much worse than any short-term pain or any apology or any, care that you have to give or whatever it may be. The regret that you hold on to, the regret when you have to look into somebody's eyes for years and years, it's unfathomable how much worse that is. And it's so much easier to just say the thing, say the thing that's painful. Just rip the Band-Aid off, as they say. That is so much better in literally every single scenario, to just get that pain out there and then deal with the repercussions. And here's the thing. Sometimes when you do that, the people are going to get pissed off. People are going to leave. People are going to not talk to you again. And you're going to feel like you regret that. But what I've found is that over time, you start to realize that if somebody can't handle your truth, if somebody can't handle you being honest, if somebody can't handle you owning up to whatever situation and just saying, I'm sorry, I won't do that again, but here's what I did. If somebody can't handle that, then they probably weren't meant for you anyway. They probably shouldn't be in your life. Whether it be romantic, whether it be a friend, whether it be a work situation, you need to move on from that, because we all fall down. We all make mistakes. We all need to be accountable for our actions. And if people are stifling your accountability, if they're creating fear in you so that you feel like you need to not say something or you not do something that you're going to end up regretting, that's going to carry with you for years and years and years, well, you don't need that in your life anyway. So I'm going to wrap this up with another quote and then a little bit of an explanation. Sidney J. Harris said, "Regret for the things we did can be tempered by time. It is regret for the things we did not do that is inconsolable." So that is very important here, and this is why I'm saving this for the last piece. There was a research study done some years ago where they took I think it was like 600 or 700 70-year-old people, and they basically talked to them and they said, okay, you're elderly, you're getting up there, and they said, what do you regret more? Do you regret the things that you've done, or do you regret the things that you haven't done? And 54% said, we regret the things that we haven't done, things that we haven't experienced, things that we haven't seen. Why? Why is it so much more that regret inaction or the inability to do something? Because regretting inaction means you're accepting, your understanding of you living your life in fear. That's what regretting inaction means. It means you were too afraid to do something. You were too afraid to speak up. You were too afraid to whatever it may be. You let fear control you. The reason I wanted to end on this is because I think that that's an important, perhaps the most important thing that I have said in this podcast. Fear of what is unknown. The undiscovered country, as Shakespeare put it. Fearing things that you cannot possibly quantify, fearing things that you can't know, is something that is a human condition, something that we all do. Unfortunately, it's also something that stifles our entire life and creates regret that will haunt us forever until we die. All I can tell you now, and this is from having lived a life where now I look back and I say, man, I kind of regret doing that because that was really stupid. I could have died. And then my friend says, but you didn't. That's a good point. I didn't. You're right. I don't really regret it. That was really fun. That's a conversation that I have had numerous times where I'll look back and the person that I am now will say, that was really stupid. Why did I do that? And then somebody says, yeah, but you had fun doing it. And I was like, oh yeah, that's why I did it. Because I'm kind of looking at my history through the lens of who I am today, as opposed to thinking about it from the time that I did those things. But the reality is that I have lived a life where what I think about, or what I used to think about as things I would regret, I now think of as things that I'm proud of. And I realize that I haven't allowed fear to control me as much as maybe other people have. And so as I sit here and I record this, I want to make this extremely clear. And I know that most people that listen to my podcast are around my age. There's not a lot of really young people listening to this, so this may fall on ears that maybe already know it or that don't really want to employ it in their life anymore. You need to let go of that fear. You need to start telling yourself that it's okay to try. It's okay to fail. It's okay to be ridiculed. It's okay to feel that pain. All of that is fine, because here's what is not okay. Living with knowing that you have not, living and dying, I should say, knowing that you have not accomplished something that makes you happy. You only have this one life. You only have this one chance to do it right. So take it. Take advantage of it. Stop living with fear as your guiding force, because all that leads to is regret. It is so much easier to try and fail and try and, have somebody say something mean about you, or to try and whatever happens, as long as you're trying, you're not truly failing. Blues Traveler has a line in one of their songs where he says, there's no such thing as a failure who keeps trying. And that is absolutely correct. You cannot regret for a long period of time you trying. It's just not something that happens. Yeah, you will regret it. You will. It'll be a short-term thing. It'll be something that you go, oh, and you'll deal with embarrassment, or you'll deal with, whatever, some other emotion that comes with it, anger, things like that. You'll deal with those. But it's so much better than living with the regret of inaction, of letting your life pass you by, of being a passive observer in your own life. Why would you want to live like that anymore? Get out there. Say what you need to say. I've said this in TikToks. I've said this on this podcast. I don't care what your medium is. I don't care what you are good at. We all have something. We all can do something. I can talk, obviously, because I'm running close to an hour and 20 minutes of me just yapping into a microphone. But I can talk, and I can move people, and I can inspire people if I want to. I can do those things because it's something that I've always been able to do. It's my talent. That's how I express myself. Not everybody can do that. Some people need to draw. Some people write. Some people, do, I don't know. There's an unlimited number of ways that you can express yourself. You need to find the thing that allows you to express yourself in the best possible way. The thing that truly, it sounds trite, but just find the thing that makes you happy. When people say that, oftentimes they don't really explain what that means. I'm explaining it to you right now. Find the thing that makes it so that you can speak your voice in whatever way that is. I sit here and I talk. If you're somebody who needs to sing, if you feel better when you sing, then start singing. You don't have to write your own music. If you're not a songwriter, that's fine. Just get in the shower and sing, and then maybe get in front of a microphone and sing, and like I am in front of a computer. And then maybe just do whatever it takes to get your voice into the world, to affect this world, to bring your light and your love and your energy into this world. Because the other option is regret. The other option is going to your grave knowing that you silenced yourself because of fear. I don't know about you, but I don't want that. That's not what I see. That when I was a little kid, I didn't say, when I grow up, I want to regret everything. That's not at all what we are here for. We're not here to do nothing. You only have one opportunity in this world to make a difference. However long you live, That's your opportunity. You can put a million different options into that opportunity. And you can try multiple times to make something happen in that one opportunity, but you only have one life. And the crazy thing about it is you're the only you that's ever existed. So why not take a shot? Why not talk to this person? Why not go to your boss and say, hey, I need a raise or I'm leaving? Why not find your own value and your own worth and understand that your voice is exceedingly important to this world? I know so many of you have stifled yourself. So many of you have allowed life to pass you by. Why? Why do you do that? Because right now, many of you are around my age, and many of you are already living with the regret. You understand this episode about regret because you're living with it right now. Oh, I didn't do this, or I didn't say this, or I wish I could have done this, or I wish I could have done that. Don't think like that anymore. This is the opportunity. This is the opportunity to change that, to make a difference in this world and to make a difference in your own life. I can't possibly tell you how happy it would make me to know that a few words here or there could help change the course of somebody's life. I know I've done it before, and I really, really hope that I can do it again. And I know there's folks on TikTok that appreciate what I have to say, and I know there's folks in this world that I run into, random people on the street or in the supermarket or at the gas station, whatever it may be, that appreciate what I do. And I know the people in my life appreciate what I do. I'm beginning to understand, more than anything, that my place here is to help others, help people understand their power and their place. Because a lot of us have forgotten, and the idea that so many of us are going to go to the grave burdened with regret, having never experienced the beauty and the joy that comes with just being yourself, of singing your song, of bringing your beauty into this world, of showing people how wonderful you really are. I just don't even know what to say. I just don't even know what to do at that point in time. Do what you need to do. Find the strength within yourself. Talk to people. Talk to me. Let people shower you with an understanding and an appreciation of who you are. Let them tell you what you have inside of you. Make a list. Go through and say, okay, these are my strengths. These are my weaknesses. Be honest with yourself. Build yourself up. Look at your weaknesses and say, okay, I can work on this. And then start to understand just how you're the only person that has those things. You're the only one in this world that has that combination. And you need to make it known. You need to sing from the rooftops if you need to. Write down everything. Draw the picture. However you get your voice into this world, do it. Do it. You only get this one opportunity. You have a lot of tries inside that opportunity, but you only get this one time. I want to hear your voice. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to see your artwork. I want to watch you perform. Bring your light into this world and do not let regret control your future, your past, your life, and your death. Thank you so much for listening. I know that this episode has jumped around a lot, and a lot of that is because I've had to edit it. I don't really like doing it like this, but once again, it was a really rough topic for me. And I hope that you guys understand that a lot of what I do here with the podcast is essentially an extended form of some of the TikToks that I do. I genuinely want this to be more of a unpolished. I want it to be as organic and real as it can be. And I hope that you understand that when I'm recording these, a lot of times I do get emotional. It does affect me. So I apologize if I kind of ramble. I apologize if I'm, not able to finish all of my points from time to time. But I hope that you get something out of this. And I will continue to hit on some of these more, I guess, negative concepts as I can. I'm not going to I'm not going to focus on them as much. But I'm absolutely doing an episode of anger within the next 2 weeks. I don't know if it'll be the next one or next 2 episodes. I don't know if it'll be the next one, but it is exceedingly important in my life. So the ability to anger manage is very, very important. So it may be the next episode, but I'll probably do something a little bit more lighthearted for the next episode, because this one was a 4-day gruel, and I need a break from these kind of feelings. So I appreciate you all. Thank you very much. Again, I know that I'm a bit long-winded, and I apologize for that. I just got a lot to get out. So take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I will talk to you all very soon.